Entrepreneurs on born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. Today, we're not live from Half Coast Studios, but here from my home. But thank you to Half Coast for everything that they do in the production of the Entrepreneur Podcast and for sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your current podcast or take your one to the next level, then you need to come check out these guys. Contact them today for a free consultation. And if you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on both Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this incredible content on social media by tagging both me and our guests, so that way we can get this content out to more people. Today, we have another great episode lined up for you. I'm extremely excited about this one. And when I talk about that, I'm not kidding. This guy and I met earlier this year through WinRate Consulting in the Champions Circle, and the impact that he has had on my life, both personally and professionally, is absolutely incredible. Extremely thankful for this person. I'm lucky enough to call him my business coach, but also a friend. He's hands down one of the most intelligent and I've ever met. And every time I talk to him, I learn something new. So I know you guys are going to get value from this episode. You're going to want to pay attention, take some notes. When this guy talks, I listen. My guest today is Josh Meunier. He is an investor, entrepreneur, author, and Forbes Contributor. He is a coach at WinRate Consulting, owner, designer at Free Space Studio, and the podcast host at The Uncommon Element. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, my man. It's great to be here, Adam. And I'm excited to dig into this a little bit with you. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun, man. Yeah, I know you have a great story. I know you have a lot of value to provide, and I know you're going to do that on this episode. For our guests, whether you're listening for the first time or this is the 10th episode you've listened to or you're listening to from the beginning, we like to bring on our guests and compare their journeys to that of the beer brewing process, thus the name Entrepreneur. So, Josh, the first thing that we like to get into is comparing the history behind the Entrepreneur to that of the beer. So talking about, obviously, every beer has a reason behind why they're being brewed. Give us a little bit on who you are, kind of start where you're at right now and work your way backwards if that works.
Sure. I live a very prosperous and fulfilled life now, where I have a lot of freedom, both financially and, within what I want to do. Like you listed out, doing a lot of things all at the same time and being able to accomplish and be successful at those all at the same time are very difficult and takes a lot of time management, grit, effort, and work ethic, honestly, behind it. So a lot of that was built from a very young age for me. I had parents that showed me great amounts of work ethic, and I credit them for that. That's been an epic tool in my tool belt that I never really knew existed or could really account for until I really started searching back into my own brain of really 5 inflection points in my life that took me on a journey and a path to where I am today, and finding my true purpose and passion in really helping scale and systemize businesses, to create the life of fulfillment and freedom for the entrepreneur. And it's a lot of fun. So it's been a very interesting journey.
That's awesome. And so you talk about like when things may have shifted, but were instilled in you from a very young age. Was there a particular point like in your entrepreneurial journey? Because I know we've talked about this in the past where you're just like, hey, I really started to look at things differently. I started to kind of find that purpose and things like that. Was there anything specific that kind of switched in your life that kind of transitioned that point, if that makes sense?
Yeah, getting around the right people. I mean, if you haven't heard it, you'll keep hearing it from me. That's a huge reason why I am where I am today, is getting around like-minded entrepreneurs that I could connect with, that had gone through similar experiences that I had already had, but also forming that type of brotherhood with people that I believe will be friends for the rest of my life, and that really became an important aspect and taught me a really valuable lesson of the relationships that you have, the quality of relationships that you have in your life determine really the quality of your life.
They do. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge. And I think that's one thing that, whether it's investing into a mastermind or it's investing into a business coach, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I think a lot of people, it doesn't matter where they're at in business, whether they're just getting started, they've been doing it for a couple of years, or they're a veteran of entrepreneurship. Some people struggle with admitting that they don't have all the answers, and their ego gets in the way. So what advice do you have to someone that hasn't invested in themselves to actually become a better version of who they are?
I think it boils down to your own self-awareness, really being able to understand the results that you're getting, the impact you're having on others around you, and your moods, your motivation, your drive, all those things that come into play in self-awareness. Okay. But really, how is it affecting the relationships that you have in your life? And I've seen it in most entrepreneurs where they get into it, it's their baby, they have a really hard time letting go of control. And that is an ego thing, because you want to protect things. But if you remember why you started a business in the first place, you probably started it to create freedom for yourself, but you never ended up doing it because you won't let go of control and get out of your own fucking way.
Yep. Sounds familiar. I've been there, as I think we all have, but no,
I have too. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that and appreciate your insight there. I think the ego aspect, the self-awareness aspect, like those are things that we have to continuously audit ourselves and see where we're at and see the progress we've made, but continue to kind of pivot and things like that. So definitely agree there. The next thing that we like to get into here on the Entrepreneur Podcast is talk about like key ingredients. So obviously great beer has great ingredients. On the entrepreneurial side and through your journey, what are 3 things that have made you successful?
Grit, adaptability, and hard work, man. I will say that till I'm dead. You gotta, like, 3. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I will tell you, from being a business owner myself that has already successfully exited a company, I would have never gotten there had I not been able to grit my way out of whatever physical pain I had during that time, mental pain that I had during that time, and just physical exhaustion. Right. But you got to be aware that that's coming no matter what. It's coming in your entrepreneurial career, especially early on when you're trying to get a good foundation built. Without those 3 elements, you're going to be in that 90% that fail.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And to second that question, I know we've talked about this before because we both had been in corporate America, and we talk about, corporate America, a lot of times on the sales side, especially, they hire athletes, and a lot of us entrepreneurs have been athletes at one point. So I would love to, because I know we both played college athletics, I would love to get your insight on what you think being a college athlete and you at the level you were at, like, what do you think that has helped out in transition, and maybe some of the things that you learned from your career, how it's translated into the real world and entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I think having athletics in your background, show you adversity, teach you how to lose and come back. I mean, I've said this before, I've won 6 championships in my career and I've played in 18.
A lot.
So, that's a lot of championships to lose, right? And a lot of seasons to play in, to have that type of loss and be able to rebound and get back from it, right? That's what athletics teaches us, is like, get back on the horse, right? And it's the same in entrepreneurship. Like, you may get into these like elements or times where it just feels like you're losing all the time. And then all of a sudden you start making transitions and doing things that you've identified aren't working for you. And you make those small, subtle changes, which then gets you down the line up to the championship that you're looking to win. It doesn't happen overnight. And people want this immediate gratification, but it doesn't. I mean, it could take you a decade to get there. And but are you willing to pursue it? And are you willing to actually pursue that competitive fire and relentlessness within you to overcome whatever adversity is going to throw at you?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And that really translates into our next point, talking about that overnight success. And a lot of people would love to have that overnight success or overnight fame, what have you. So in this aspect, we talk about the brewing process. Obviously, great beer doesn't happen overnight, nor does entrepreneurship. So talk to us about some of the ups and downs of your journey and some key points that have kind of benchmarked where you're at today.
Okay. So I've had 2 near-death experiences in my life. Those 2 really scared the shit out of me in a lot of ways. And I don't talk about it a lot with people because what I did was I compartmentalized it a lot. And it turned into something that became completely out of control. So what I mean by that is I started like getting really depressed. I was worried that I was going to die, especially when I almost died when I was 26 and ended up in the hospital for 10 days. And I had anxiety. I was depressed. I was drinking. I was using drugs. I was also under an incredible amount of pressure working for really the top 3 tech company in the world at the time and running, small to medium sized business for them in what we called emerging markets. And I knew if I didn't do something about it, I was either going to drink myself to death or commit suicide. And I decided to leave and go travel. And I actually sold all of my shit except for my Jeep, which I stored in my parents' garage, and left. And I left for 11 months. I went vagabonding, got stranded on a remote island for 3 months. Well, 2.5 really, without a wallet. So ticked off a bunch of stuff on my bucket list, like dove the Great Barrier Reef, hiked Everest Base Camp, did those things. That was Everest Base Camp was an inflection point for me, specifically on mental barriers and controlling my subconscious mind in an athletic way where I could, first time in my life where I can remember that I told my brain that my legs were not tired and my legs reacted. Like I was dead exhausted. I was climbing up this peak called Kalpatar, and about halfway up, it's 3:30 in the morning. We're trying to get there to watch sunrise over Everest. And I wanted to quit so bad. It was one of the toughest physical tasks I've ever done in my life. But I go back to that and I go, that was an inflection point for me too, where I figured out that if I just told my body what to do, I could push past anything. And that, 16-hour hike in one day at that altitude, like you better be ready. So,
yeah.
So that's helped me in business a lot to, kind of bring it all to fruition. Is I would have never started my entrepreneurial journey had I not gone and traveled and really exercised something that I felt like I needed to get out of my system because I thought I was going to die and I wasn't going to be fulfilled unless I figured out what was out there in the rest of the world, where I had zero safety net. I didn't have anything that could protect me in foreign countries that don't really love America. So that was certainly a test. But
yeah, I can imagine. Wow. That's I appreciate you sharing that story. I think there's a lot of things, obviously, that you learned, that you experienced, obviously, as well, that made you into who the entrepreneur you were today. So talking about that journey, I think, gives us a lot of insight. What are some of the kind of the peaks in entrepreneurship that you've seen thus far, and kind of what led you to those peaks? Like what made you successful in that regard?
Sure. Peaks in entrepreneurship, I would say the first time I figured out that the purpose of me starting a business wasn't for me, it was for helping my employees accomplish their own dreams. Like I'll never forget it. first time because I set goals with all of my employees and would do 90-day reviews with them. And one of my employees had a 10-year goal to buy a house, and he did it in 18 months. Just by utilizing like what I had taught him to how do you set up your finances? Like, how are you saving? Like, what are you looking at? And being able to really impact people's lives, and not just like the lives of them. You got to understand, if as an entrepreneur, you impact all of the families of them. So, you know, that's touching potentially thousands of people.
Oh yeah.
That was a major peak for me. Major peak.
Yeah, no, I believe that. And you and I have worked through that this year in those 90-day reviews and connecting with your employees on a different level than just business, because that only plays just a small factor in terms of why they're working for you and why they're a part of your mission. So if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur and you're not having 90-day reviews and goal setting with your team, I can tell you firsthand, not only does it change the game, but it gives you more purpose as an entrepreneur, because everything that we go out and do now, we truly understand why someone is so dedicated to getting a bonus or hitting their next goal, because the impact that has goes far behind the money that they're going to be getting from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And oftentimes you see entrepreneurs sacrificing their own paychecks to pay their own people, right? You know, I don't do better in business. That's all I'm going to tell you. Raise your prices. Yeah. Okay. So,
yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, you know, you nailed it, is there is a transition in entrepreneurship where you go from like this solo entrepreneur to having to lead people. And it's scary. It's scary for a lot of people. Because you're responsible for somebody else. Like, and if you've never had a kid like me, I've never had kids. Right. So that became my family. That was like, okay, now like these are people that I get to help. Okay. How do I help you? How do I serve you and become a better leader for you? Because that is your transition. The better leader you become, the better your business becomes. And if you can't lead yourself, guess what? You can't lead other people.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more there. And I think it's such a key point, talking about leadership, talking about leading yourself. And once you can do that, then you can effectively lead other people. So I love that aspect. The next thing I want to get into is our fermentation and conditioning process. So this is the part of the beer where we taste the beer, kind of see what it tastes like and figure out what needs to be changed in order to get just a little bit better. So what is the biggest lesson that you've learned that you would share with an entrepreneur looking to save years worth of mistakes?
Man, I was like, we're tasting stuff. I hope I'm not sweating. No, if you're an entrepreneur, the sooner you can get into and around other like-minded entrepreneurs, mentors, that's the best thing that I've always had really throughout my entire life. Is I've had a board of directors in my life that have helped me in different aspects and elements of my life. Just like if you were an athlete and you had a coach, right? That's like they're getting you years of experience. Like if I go coach, you know, younger teams, right? I was a coach for 10 years, actually a CrossFit coach for 10 years. And, you know, you're 10, 20, 30 years ahead sometimes of these kids that you're working with, right? Well, go out and find the people that are 30 years out of business, right? Like, or 20 years out of business, or where you want to be, right? And if that's your goal. But I would tell you, you not just in business, you need to have those people in the other elements of your life, like your fitness, your faith, right? Your personal finances. You know, we're not all rocket scientists, and guess what? We don't know it all. We just don't. But the quicker that you get around people that can show you kind of those ins and outs, the faster you're going to go. And I think, I mean, I watched your results, man. You've invested in yourself. I mean, you're taking off like a rocket ship. It's like, it's awesome. It's awesome and fun to watch. Right. But you got yourself around the right people, just like I did. I had to invest in myself first to make sure that I got those people around me.
Yeah, no, it's been the biggest differentiator between myself and I look at, other people that want to accomplish certain things and they've been in business at the same time. They just haven't taken the action. And it all comes down to investing in yourself, which is one thing, but actually learning and figuring out what it is that needs to be done and then actually taking action on it. Because a lot of people get access to the information, they go to the events, they hire the coach, and then they don't actually take action. That's another problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And the accountability thing is a big thing, right? But you have to be accountable to yourself. Really what you're doing by getting mentors around you is getting the ideas and go apply them. Like, don't be that person that buys a book and then it collects dust on your cabinet for 2 years. All of a sudden you pick it up and go, shit, I wish I read this 2 years ago. Because that would have solved my problem. Right.
Oh yeah. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
So wrapping things up here in the Entrepreneur Podcast, we talk about distribution. So taking beer to the market and selling it. So I know you have a lot of different amazing things going on. Would love to hear more about what is holding in the future for you and kind of what's next down the pipeline.
Yeah. Well, I'll be buying as much real estate as I can coming up. Once the market corrects. Yep. I say this a lot to people is wrap your head around your numbers. And I know that's scary for a lot of people, but wrap your head around your numbers. And where I'm going is I'm trying to make an impact and help people out there understand that, what do your numbers look like in your business? What do those numbers actually mean so you can manage your business through it, right? And then continuing to work with WinRate and grow that brand as much as we can, because I really believe in our mission and that team. It's a lot of fun. And I think that there are a lot of new things that, we're all sitting there masterminding that people don't know about, but will be coming in the future. And it's exciting, man. It's really exciting to be a part of that, because that's a lot of high players with a lot of great ideas. And, when you get the right people in the right seats in the room around you that share that like-minded mentality, you are going to go far pretty fast.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm really excited to see the next evolution and continue to, obviously being connected to you and following your journey. So Josh, any last pieces of advice that we didn't talk about today? Anything that you would like to leave with the audience before we head out today?
Choose wisely. My message to you is choose wisely. I've made a lot of mistakes in my entrepreneurial career of choosing the wrong people to be around up front, which led me to the lessons that better help me, serve other people. And honestly, when you're evaluating who's in your circle, choose wisely, because it's not always the people that are going to tell you what you want to hear. And there are people that you can have in your life like that, but it's the people that tell you what you need to hear. So you have feedback loops to get better. And if you ain't in that growth mindset, I highly doubt you're listening to this anyways. So choose your partners, choose your friends, choose, your marriage, choose all of that wisely.
Oh, I love that. That's a great way to end this episode, Josh. I really appreciate you coming on here today, man. Where can people find out more about you, whether it's a website, combination of that plus social links?
Yeah, for sure. You can always hit me up on Instagram at Josh Meunier Official. I'm very active on that. If you want to know more about the podcast, it's the Uncommon Element podcast. That's where most of my stuff is going right now, because I'm launching a clothing brand around that too. If you're interested in design work, I do only take on a specific clients. So Free Space Studio, you can hit me up there. That's freespacestudio.com, the uncommonelement.com, and Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me on all sorts of channels. So
awesome. We'll have all that in the show notes for the audience. Josh, thanks for coming on today, man. It was a great episode. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. You too, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning into today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're here in St. Louis and looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, definitely come check out what they have going on. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney.